Morning, guys. Was going to shoot this outside, but it started to rain, and so I decided to come inside. What? I'm appreciative of all you guys' support and allowing me to do this format where I don't have to edit. I don't have to do a lot besides do this. Hit record, hit stop, and upload. I know this video already is going to be suppressed, likely demonetized because of the subject matter, but that's okay. A lot of people who follow this channel have told me that, and then you're likely looking for it organically yourself. Big shout out to my Patreon members. I will do an underground version of this that's less censored. And I want to say my advice based on all the information that I'm getting, open source things that I'm observing, and then a lot of intuition based on my experiences is just my opinion. Take it or leave it. I've been pretty accurate since I've been doing this for the last 10 years on things that I see, especially going down rabbit holes on trying to accumulate as much information that's as accurate as possible to give you guys some insight of what I think is going to happen. So let's get into it, right? Number one, Trump's going to win. I think Trump's going to win. I was pretty pessimistic about that over the last couple weeks. But based on a lot of things that I'm seeing, including 20,000 people at Madison Square Garden coming to see Trump, the podcast that has over 30 million views done by Joe Rogan that was very difficult to find, even at a point in time, impossible to find on YouTube. It's available on X as well. I listened to that and I put myself in the shoes of somebody who's weighing the sides. And what you take away from that conversation of 3 hours of no scripts, no pre-planned questioning, is that Trump's just a guy. He's got a profound experience in business. He's who he says he is, and there's no pretending. Sure, just like Rogan said, he says some radical stuff, which is why he continues to be in the headlines. But when you listen to that 3-hour conversation, you realize, oh, this dude can hold a 3-hour conversation. He's cognitive, and he's not all of the things that are being said about him, especially by the left-wing propagandist and the corporate media. Now, I think obviously that is a component to favoring him over Kamala Harris. The most significant reason why I think he's going to win, and by a large margin, or let me say a significant margin than as predicted now, where they say it's so close and so tight, is because of the radical rhetoric of the Harris campaign the last week and a half, calling anybody who supports Trump a Nazi, a fascist, racist. If you're a man and you don't vote for Kamala Harris, you're sexist. If you're a black man and you don't vote for Kamala Harris, you're a racist and a sexist. And so I think a lot of people, especially on the fence, and a lot of people even like me who are more moderate, conservative but more moderate, look at that and go, dude, who wants to hear that shit? Who wants to hear that garbage? What's the path? When you're scaring away all the billionaires because you're telling them they're no good because they're successful, despite the proof and fact that they create the jobs for Americans. When you tell men in every demographic, except for white, black, Latino, the list goes on, that you're a sexist if you don't vote for Kamala Harris. When you tell Americans that are potentially on the fence that you're a racist or you're a Nazi because you support Donald Trump, that's where you lose a lot of Americans. And I think she just swung the vote outside of her favor. That is a deliberate tactic on something else that I think is going to happen. So prediction number one, Trump wins by landslide. He takes the general vote, the majority vote, and he takes the country in electoral votes across the country. He sweeps the country. I'm making that prediction right now, just based on what I'm seeing. The Harris campaign, I believe, knows they're losing. They know they're going to lose. The follow-up is what's next. And when you see like Bezos giving the order, who's obviously owning the Washington Post, and saying that we're not going to give our prediction, and you have a lot of people in that liberal news organization resigning over that, there's a greater indication that they know the path, whether it's internal polling, or whether it's information that they see. They're already making the predictive path. I also think, based on the rhetoric and the propaganda I'm seeing coming out of the Harris campaign, you don't do that unless you know you're losing, because it's a last act of desperation. You get you get away from reason, logic, reasonable conversations, and you get more into rhetoric and desperation when you know you're losing, which is an evil tactic. So if they know they're losing and they're setting the stage for all this rhetoric and propaganda that's being psyoped to everybody in the country via the corporate media, because everybody's running with that. Even a story about a veteran who was killed, and supposedly Trump said he was going to help the family pay for the funeral, and when they got the bill of $60,000, supposedly with no public source or publicly named source, he said, I wasn't going to pay for that, and he said some racist things, Trump did, that were untrue, according to the Trump administration. And these kind of stories, including those being heard by generals saying that Trump appreciated or liked Hitler's generals, is one of the reasons I think the PSYOP is to build rhetoric to create an extreme outcry when Trump wins. I mean, it's basic PSYOP tactics. We're setting the stage here. We're thinking about the second and third order effects. And what will those be? Well, after Trump is announced the winner in November 6, November 7, sure, the Democrats are going to use the Department of Justice, just like they have in recent history over the course of this year, really, of course, across the 3.5 and 4 years that they've been in power, to go after their political opponents. So they will do everything possible to deny the election. And leading up to January 20th-ish, they will do their best to ignite and set all major cities on fire in the name of freedom, liberty, patriotism, and democracy. Because right after they lose, the rhetoric will be, it was stolen. And then every corporation in the national media will run with that story. And then when people start hitting the streets, because they'll tell them to hit the streets, they will, because they'll be puppets and dummies for that administration. And they'll start igniting and burning these cities to the ground. Here's what I think is going to happen. With that, there's going to be an establishment of law and order. And you'll see either the National Guard, police, or whoever go out and try to protect certain areas because, I don't know, states like Florida won't tolerate it. States like South Carolina won't tolerate it. And what you'll see is the potential worst case scenario of law-abiding, conservative-ran states deploying resources to protect the sovereignty and security of law-abiding citizens, where anarchists and name the radical left organization come out, and then you get a scenario where, I don't know, a police officer defends his life, his or her life, and that turns into a story that the police, the racist, prejudiced, defunded police are going after patriots in the streets. The military is in the same boat. They go out, they get pelted with rocks, with pipe bombs like they did during the BLM and Antifa protest, and that story is told a skewed way. And then what you see is the world on fire, the country on fire. What happens after that? Well, there's going to be an inauguration. Whether it happens in a underground secure location somewhere in the country, or it happens in the Capitol building, there's going to be an inauguration. My question, and the part where I don't know exactly how this is going to unfold, is, are they going to let it happen? Are they going to relinquish control of the White House? If they don't, be prepared. Be prepared altogether, but be prepared. What I thought was going to be a long, slow burn of everything being blown out of proportion based on the rhetoric of the last week, I think they have a plan to ignite the country on fire. When you overtly, as the Vice President of the United States, call your political opponent a Nazi and say the equivalent of 20,000 Americans, Black, Asian, white, Hispanic, men, women, LGBTQ+, all in a place, in a very liberal place, at Madison Square Garden, and make the correlation between a Nazi rally that took place in the 30s and correlate that to the same experience that's happening now with so many Americans, you want to set the country on fire. And I think that's the plan from the onset. I'd like to hear you guys' feedback. I'm going to get off to the underground and excited to talk about it without the worry of suppression. I will see if this monetizes, if they let it go, but based on the keywords and the things I said, I don't think they will. YouTube suppressed supposedly the search queue for the Rogan podcast, and that's unacceptable. I don't think Google and YouTube should be doing that at all, but speaking from my own experience, because I was demonetized from YouTube for Philcraft Survival's channel for a year for posting canning, jarring, and survival to civilians. Like all the content for civilians that we were doing that was completely harmless, not radical in any way, I got demonetized until I did the Rogan podcast. That's why I recommend using alternative search engines, including the one I'm going to link down below. I'm going to do that. You guys can check the description, which there won't be a lot there. But if you want to check out my patreon.com/Mike Glover or alternative to Google, I'll make sure I'll link it down below. I appreciate you guys. I'm off to the underground. Peace out.